Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Zenande. If you are new to my channel, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us. And if you are a returning subscriber, I'd like to first apologize for disappearing, but sometimes life requires us to take a step back and fill our cup so that we are able to create positive impact when we engage with others. Because one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes what you create in the world is a reflection of how you feel within yourself. And so I felt like it was important for me to take a step back so that I'm able to give you guys good energy because I was not okay within myself. As you can tell by the title of this video, today I'm talking about resigning without having a backup plan. The video came about when I was talking to a friend of mine and I was telling them about how I've always communicated my departure before even looking for a job. And she was like, listen here, if you ever tell this story, put the biggest of disclaimers, because if people do the same thing that you do, they are likely going to stay unemployed for a very long time. And so I thought the appropriate disclaimer that I should give you guys is basically telling you guys who I am. Does that make sense? Like who I am and what makes me who I am. And guys, please understand this. If you know me, you'll know that when I ask for advice, I'm usually looking for a data point. I'm never the one to take whatever a person tells me and apply it to my life as it is. And I'm hoping that you guys will do the same with whatever that I'll be sharing in this video. Understand that we are different, our circumstances are different, our lives are different, our paths and journeys are different. So I am not one to take whatever that a person tells me and apply it in my life as it is, and I expect you guys to do the same. And this is important for me to mention now because I understand that most of us are at a point in our lives where we are looking for answers. I am not one to give anyone an answer to anything. I will give you a perspective and then you have to decide for yourself whether whatever that I'm saying applies to you or not, and make sure that whatever decision that you make, it is yours, and if it's a mistake, it is your mistake. You own it. Now let's talk about the reason why we are here. The first thing that I want to cover is why I usually communicate with whoever I'm working with before applying and interviewing for other jobs. Okay, now I'm one of the very unfortunate people. This is a blessing and a curse. I have the conscience that will not let me get away with doing bad things. You understand? And this is extreme. And I would never encourage anyone to have this or apply this in their lives. Now, I'm not one to go to my team and tell them that, oh, my dog is sick when I know that I'm going to an interview. This is risky and I would really never encourage you guys to apply this to your lives because there's a risk that someone might see that as a weakness, or you might be thinking that you're being open when someone else is seeing that as an opportunity to come up with creative ways to hurt you. And so I would really never encourage you to do this, but it's something that I just had to accept by myself. I'm not the greatest of liars. Now, because I learned a long time ago that I'm an acquired taste, this requires me then to invest a lot of time in deciding which spaces that I'll put myself in and who I'll surround myself with. You understand? So basically, guys, I'm a weird, awkward person. Some of you guys will know that. Some of you guys might have noticed this. And so I don't fully belong in many spaces. And so I have to think very hard about the people that I surround myself with and the spaces that I choose to spend most of my time in. And this includes jobs. And so by the time I need to think about leaving, I already care for the people that I work with. And so I can't be like, oh, my dog is sick, and then they hear from someone else that I was there interviewing at their company. That's just not comfortable for me. Additionally, one of the things that I've learned about people as I engage with more people is that people like being the first one to break the news. And so there's a risk that I might go to, I don't know, to a consulting company or, I don't know, corporate finance house. And as soon as I leave, there's someone there there's someone there who has a strong relationship with someone in my team, and they text like, hey, we just met this person. They said they're working with you or they work in your team. And my team doesn't know that I'm looking for another job. Again, this is me, and this is the cost that I'm willing to pay. I accepted that a long time ago. It's just not comfortable for Mna to say that, oh, I'm sick when I'm not sick. Oh, my dog is sick when I'm going for an interview. It's just not me. But I accepted it a long time ago. And remember, everything has a cost, and this is the cost that I'm willing to pay. Now that we've covered why I always communicate before applying for jobs or before interviewing, let's talk about who I am. And I don't think there is a better place to start this conversation other than talking about the people who brought me into this world. Okay, now, my mother comes from a family of spiritually gifted people in the African context. And my father comes from a family of entrepreneurs. Now, I'm not the most religious person, but when I was younger, when I was a kid, I used to be really good at pattern recognition. But this is something that I had to slowly let go of because it is just a burden. I mean, I still have it within me, but like it's not as intense as it was when I was a kid. Now that I'm older, I've learned that I'm on the spectrum. I am very sensitive to a lot of things. I'm one of those people, guys. There's a certain level of evil that you can't have around me. But this is not something that's new for me. I've always been like this. I've always been a person who asks why. And people always had to explain why. And of course, there's certain people, certain elders at the time who were not as patient with explaining why certain things had to be the way they are. I hate unfairness. I know hate is a strong word. I genuinely hate unfairness of any kind. Everything for me is like all about principle. And sometimes life just doesn't work like that. Now that we've covered where my parents come from, I think it's important to mention that both of my parents are lastborns. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I always say we are everything that has happened to us, everything that we have experienced. We are our environments, the environments that we grew up in, the periods that we grew up in, and we are the people who raised us, whether we like it or not. And this is important because the role of a caregiver, role of a parent, is to prepare you for the life outside of home. And parents will prepare you for whatever they perceive as important. For example, I spent my primary school years in the villages of the Eastern Cape, and I used to hate it so much when older women would be like, oh, you're so lazy, who's going to marry you? But now that I'm older, I understand that for them, it was important that they are chosen by a man, hopefully a good man. It was important that they marry into a good family. It was important that they get married. Whereas for me, I actually don't care about marriage like that. And also, I mean, we'll get to this story, but like when I was younger, I looked in my class, I'm in grade 9, I think grade 1 to 3. People used to be like, oh, who's going to marry you? And I looked at the boys in my class. I'm like, first of all, I'm smarter than all of these boys. I don't want to be chosen by them. Whereas for my caregivers, it was important that they are chosen because you couldn't buy land without a man. You couldn't do anything without a man. The thing with lastborn is that if their parents or their caregivers are not careful, they are likely to think that they are kids for the rest of their lives. And so you basically, as a parent, you're basically risking having society to dealing with a 50-year-old child. It's important to look at the fact that with the firstborn, parents actually don't know what they're doing. It's a trial and error. They don't know how to be parents. Now, with the secondborn, they kind of have the hang of it, and the firstborn is always told, oh, give the child the toy. Whenever they cry, oh, the child. And then comes the lastborn. Now, after the lastborn, there's no one who comes after for the lastborn to give up toys to. They learn that whenever they cry, things happen. right? And there's a risk that they will do this until they're old. Okay, now my parents kind of benefited from this. As a person whose parents are lastborns, I'm very difficult to manipulate. Like, I can't think of a manipulation style that hasn't been used on me. If you give me silent treatment, that's the same as trying to threaten me with a good time. Like, there's no manipulation that can easily work on me. And so this sometimes is frustrating for a lot of people, because, it's like, oh, why are you not reacting? Sometimes I can see that you just want a reaction, and so I will just act like I'm not seeing what you're doing, because I know that you just probably want attention, or you want a reaction, or in order for you to feel like, yeah, I'm winning, you need me to react, you need me to be angry, and so I'm going to deprive you of that. I'm not gonna get angry. You can't. And guys, I'm a very reflective person. And so if I do something wrong, I will literally sit down and think about it and be like, okay, I was wrong, and then go apologize. You cannot make me responsible for things that I'm not responsible for. You cannot put things on me and think that I will feel like, oh my goodness, I'm wrong, when I didn't do anything wrong. It's I promise you. Like, guys, I journal a lot. Okay, I'm a very reflective person. Even if, for example, I'll do something wrong and I will write it in my journal, and over a period of time I'll look at the pattern. I'm like, okay, I see this is because I'm probably doing this because of A, B, and C. And so I know when I'm at fault, but you will never, and I promise you, you will never make me responsible for things that are not my problem. Now that we've covered my parents, where they come from, I think it's important that I mention a few significant events in my upbringing that have contributed to the person that I am today. Okay, I've mentioned that I'm an only child, and although I'm an only child, I grew up with 5, sometimes 6 boys, and I was an only girl. I was the only girl in that group. Now, I grew up in a home where most disputes, or I don't know what the word to use, but basically most things were resolved by simply fighting. Like, if someone was doing something, you just ask for a friendly fight and you just fight it out. Our caregiver in the home where I spent most of my primary school years used to say, if you guys want to fight, you can continue to fight. Just understand that I'm beating up whoever cries first. And so this then required one to decide if they really want to partake in a fight and understand the cost of losing whatever fight they decide to engage in. Okay? And so if you choose to fight, you had to make sure that you're going to win. And so that has contributed significantly to the person that I am today. Additionally to that, I grew up in an environment in the villages where people just ask for friendly matches. Like, if a person feels like, okay, you're pissing me off, they just ask to fight you. And additional to the upbringing or the home that I grew up in, I couldn't go home and cry, oh my goodness, so-and-so is bullying me. I had to fight there and go home and tell a full story. And you only tell your victory stories. If you lost, you lost. You act like it never happened. And so I think this is important because as an adult now, I'm not one to go home crying when my life is falling apart. I'm also mentioning this because I've always said life was made for people with siblings. And one of the things that I've learned just from observing people with siblings is that they like controlling the narrative. And I used to observe this when I was a kid, where you will fight with a kid and they will run home and want to be the first one to tell the story so that they control the narrative. And usually parents who are not careful, you would take the side of the first person to talk about the problem. And this happens even in real life. Because I grew up in an environment where I didn't need to fight to be the one to be heard, the one to be believed, I always see that I'm risking basically having people portray me a certain way. This has happened a few times. I mean, maybe some other day I'll tell you the times where I've observed this. And if you are a parent, I think maybe you should use this, or what I've just said about kids running home and wanting to be the first person to tell a story so that they control the narrative. Use it as a way to make sure that you are careful in how you resolve conflicts with your kids, because I think that's where resentment usually starts building.